friends, and welcome to Club Firefly, where we read, create, and you shine when you share your creations with us. I'm Keisha, and today we are reading
Pet Pangolin Wants a Pet, written by Wayne D. Kramer, illustrated by Jade Zivanovic. Pet Pangolin Wants a Pet. Do you all know what a pangolin is? Well, normally I would start at the front of a book, but today I'm actually going to flip to the back where it tells us what is a pangolin. And a pangolin is a mammal. It's the only mammal that has scales on their body. And they're made from, like keratin, the same thing that our nails are made from, and it helps protect them from predators that might try to hurt them. And do you know what a pangolin's favorite food is? Termites and ants. Can you imagine eating termites and ants? They can eat up to 200,000 of these in a night. And they do it at night because pangolins are nocturnal, which means they are active most in the night. A baby pangolin is known as a pango pup. Aww. And the name pangolin comes from the Malay word panguling, which means rolling up. So now that we know what a pangolin is, let's read about Pet Pangolin. On her most recent birthday, Pet Pangolin asked her parents if she could have a pet. They got her a plant instead. But this is not just any kind of plant. That looks different. Do you see those little things there? This plant is called a Venus flytrap. And these parts actually move. And if a fly goes in there, it catches it right in its little trap. So it's kind of like a pet, I guess. It's a good little plant, thought Penny. She fell in love with it. She wanted to make sure it stayed healthy and strong. She made sure it got enough fresh, clean water. She kept it nice and cozy beside her at bedtime. Good night, she would whisper to her plant. She made sure it got lots of sunshine from her backyard, and whenever it was hungry, she was always ready with a new fly. See, she's feeding it a fly, and whoop. She took her plant to the store. She took her plant with her to her friend's house. Sometimes her parents made the plant stay home. But it'll be lonely, Penny protested. One day, Penny walked with her plant through the neighborhood. She heard a loud noise from Mr. Weasley's house. Seconds later, a rust-colored streak dashed out of the yard. Mr. Weasley followed, shouting and swinging a broom. What was that? Penny asked. Mr. Weasley gave a tip of his flat cap. Good day, Miss Pangolin. Some kind of old wild bear cat's been eating me prize-winning bamboo right out me garden. Now it's ruined. Oh, dear. Maybe it's just hungry, said Penny. It's a menace, Mr. Weasley replied. I'm going to catch that pesky critter, and then it's far away from here. I'll be taking it. Penny thought Mr. Weasley might be overreacting. Sometimes he was quick to have a bad temper. Later, Penny arranged a tea party with her plant. It was a very quiet guest. When she played with her toys, the plant could only sit in silence. Penny's friend Edith was able to cuddle her rabbit Hopsky. Penny couldn't cuddle her plant like that. The truth was, as much as she loved her plant, it just didn't make a very good pet. Can we please get a pet? Penny finally asked her parents. She waited while her parents talked about it. You've done a very good job taking care of your plant, said her mother. We think you're responsible enough to take care of a pet, said her father. Penny bounced on her tail in excitement. Yay, she cheered. But what pet should we get? They all said together. What pet do you all think she should get? Let's see what happens. A monkey? Asked her father. They climb too much, said her mother. A macaw? Asked her mother. Too much squawking, said her father. A snake? Asked Penny. No, both her parents said quickly. They just couldn't decide. That would be an interesting pet to have, huh? A monkey or a macaw or a snake. While walking with her plant and thinking about pets, Penny saw something at the edge of Mr. Weasley's yard. What is that? It was the rust-colored creature that Mr. Weasley had chased off. He thrashed about in the trap, trying to free himself. The creature stopped moving and looked at her. On his fuzzy face was a desperate, pleading look. Oh, he's so cute. Penny felt sorry for him. She didn't think he looked like a menace. Mr. Weasley had called the little guy a bear cat. Well, you're kind of a bear cat, Penny said in a soothing voice. You're a red panda cub. Here, let me help you, but you have to promise not to be any more trouble for Mr. Weasley. Penny smiled, and the red panda remained still while she opened the trap. There, said Penny. The red panda cub sniffed at her scales. Now you can go home, she said. But the red panda cub followed Penny home instead. He can stay for now, said her father, but he will have to leave if we find he has another home someplace. Okay, Penny replied. I think I'll call you Mookie, she said to the red panda. The cub twittered happily. Penny loved having Mookie at home. He was no longer any trouble for Mr. Weasley, and he stayed nice and cozy beside her bed at night. Whenever Penny took care of her plant and did her chores, he was right there beside her. At tea time, he was not very quiet, but he was a lot of fun, and Penny got lots of cuddles. Penny and Mookie were snacking on termite crackers. Remember how they like to eat termites? When her dad came into the room. I found a red panda den just outside of the village, he said. I think it might be where Mookie belongs. Penny tried to feel happy that Mookie would get to go home, but inside she felt like crying. Good night, Mookie, she whispered that night. Feeling sad, she sniffled until falling asleep. The next day, they took Mookie to the den Penny's father had found. No matter how much they tried, Mookie refused to stay anywhere near the den. He only wanted to follow Penny back home. It looks like Mookie loves Penny as much as she loves him. One day, Penny's dad answered a knock on the door. It was their usual mail carrier dropping off a package. And he saw Penny playing with Mookie. I recognize that red panda, he said. He's been all over the village. Does he have a home? Asked Penny's father. He's an orphan. That means he doesn't have a family, replied the mail carrier. Penny's mom and dad looked at each other, then at Penny, and smiled. Penny wrapped her arms around Mookie and gave him a big hug. He's not an orphan anymore, she said. He's our pet. And that is the end, friends.
Well, I learned so much about pangolins from that story, and I'm glad that Penny finally got her pet. Hey, I wonder what it would be like to have a pet pangolin. But you know what? pangolins are endangered species, which means there's not that many of them left, and they need to stay in their natural habitat. But you know what we could do? We could make a pet pangolin. How would you like to have a pet like this guy? He's pretty cute, right? Let's create pet pangolins.
For this project, you will need some wine corks, some paper towel rolls or toilet paper rolls, some scrap cardboard, a plastic water bottle. You will need some glue. Now I'm using hot glue, but you could also use tacky glue if you've got that. You will need a pair of scissors and a black Sharpie. You can press pause now if you want to go grab your supplies. All right, friends, we are going to be making our 3D pangolin. And so you will need a water bottle. I am using just a tiny one, but you could use a bigger one, whatever you've got on hand. This is going to be the body of the pangolin. And we're just going to cut a little bit off of one side of it. So this would be the top of the pangolin, and then we'll attach the feet later here. So you can take your scissors and just kind of puncture your water bottle, and then cut off a little bit just around the bottom of it. It's not easy to do. All right, there we go. I got my scissor to go through. So kind of where the top ends is where I'm cutting. Just so we'll have one flat side for the bottom of the pangolin. Okay. All right, so I've opened it up now. I've got one flat side, and this is going to be the bottom where I'm going to attach my feet. This is going to be the head, and I'm actually going to use a cork for the head. So I'm going to unscrew the lid to my water bottle, pick one of my corks, and this I'm going to stick in there to be the head of the pangolin. All right. We're also going to use corks for the feet of the pangolin. So go ahead and pick out 4 corks that you want to use. I also have some different shaped ones here. You could use those. Whatever you've got on hand, you can use those. And I am just going to glue them to the 4 sides of my pangolin. You want to make sure that you glue them at about the same height so that the feet are even and he'll stand up straight. I'm going to be using hot glue today. Make sure if you're using a hot glue gun that you've got an adult to help you with it, because it does get very warm. You could probably also use some tacky glue for when we get to the scales. If you don't have hot glue for the legs, you could probably use tape. I think tape would work well, masking tape or scotch tape, just to hold them into place. The tricky thing about using hot glue and plastic is you have to make sure the hot glue is not too hot, because then it will burn through the plastic. So I'm using a low temp hot glue gun and just squeezing a little bit there before it gets too hot, and then hold it there so it can dry. Look, he's starting to come together already. And I'm just making sure my corks are about the same height. I feel like I need to take a little bit more off here. Okay. And doing my best to make sure that the corks are even at the bottoms. That one I think fits better. A little hot glue here. There we go. And they all look pretty even across the bottom. So let's glue that last 4th leg in. And then we'll see if he can stand up. Voila, he is standing. All right, so he's got legs, he's got a head, but what's missing? The scales, right? The scales is what makes a pangolin look like a pangolin and not some other 4-legged creature. So for the scales, we're going to be using paper towel rolls or toilet paper rolls. And what you want to do is first cut it open like this. So just cut all the way down the center. And then you can kind of open it up like that. And this, it's great because it already has a curve to it that you can kind of wrap around here. But that doesn't look very scaly, right? So we need to create scales. And how we're gonna do that is by cutting our toilet paper roll into strips. I think about 3 strips for each toilet paper roll. If you've got paper towel roll, then probably 6 strips. And then we'll cut each of those strips into scales. So we're doing rows of scales, so you don't have to do individual ones, but you'll just make some scales like that. I think fitting 3 or 4 across works well. And it's okay if they're a little bit different sizes because you can use the bigger ones for the scales going around the back. You see how that works? All right, and then the smaller ones for the scales on the front or on the head or the tail. All right, so let's see if I can get a few more scales out of this one. 4 going across like that. And so we will layer these up like that, and that will create the scales for our pangolin. All right, so I'm going to cut a bunch of strips because you'll need some to start up here at the head to go all the way down, and then we're also going to be creating a tail with our strips. So cut maybe 10 or 12 of these strips, I would say. All right, so I'm going to cut mine up. And if you wanted to, you could try to do some teeny tiny scales. So different sizes is good. Okay, I think I've got enough to work with. And if I need more, I can always cut more. So when you start to glue your scales down, you need to start from the back of the pangolin so that you can layer them on top of each other, right? If you start from the front, it's going to be harder to layer them. So we're going to start from the back. And since this, the tail is going to be quite long too. So in the back area, I'm going to use my bigger scales, and then I'll get smaller as I go towards the front and towards the back. And so to do this, you can just run like a little line of hot glue along the edge of your scale like that, and then lay it down. Boop. All right, we've got our first scale attached. Now we'll do our next one. And maybe I'll just put my glue on this one this time. And I think it's a good idea to kind of stagger your scales so that they don't all line up exactly, right? So this one, is kind of staggered with that one. Put the humps and the dips so they don't line up perfectly. And I think that'll make it look a bit more realistic when we add them all on. And it's fine if there's a little bit of space between them because scales don't lay completely flat on a pangolin because it's curved. So I'm just going to keep gluing all my scales. Okay, now as it starts to curve down, you do want your scales to curve down too. So if they're not naturally curving, you can always clip a little bit so that they will come in together a bit. So you want to start to angle them down towards the head like that so you get the curve in there. Okay, now this one that's going kind of around the nose and mouth, I'm going to try to tighten it a bit and wrap that around the last one. Okay, so I'm going to put a little spot of glue down here and here to hold my scales down. So I got all my scales here, and now I'm going to work some scales down the back to create the tail of the pangolin. And now I can go inside. So I'm going to layer them on the inside and have them get smaller as they go down. And we're making a pangolin today, but this is a great way to make lots of different kinds of animals by, using a water bottle as your base and some little cork feet, and then adding to that. Now I actually need a few more strips of my roll to finish off the tail. So if you were doing a larger water bottle, then you're going to need more than 16 of your little layers of scales. Okay, let's put in our last couple of layers. Okay, I think I'll just do one more layer. You guys, look what we made out of toilet paper rolls. Doesn't that look cool? All those layers of scales. So I'm just going to come back and do a little bit of cleaning up and making sure my glue is secure. All right, last thing is we need a little face for this guy. So you can use your Sharpie just to draw on an eye or a little face on either side. So I'm going to use my Sharpie to do that. I think I'll cut this first one. For this first one, I want the face to be a little bit different shape. So I'm going to cut up here and then cut in here and give it more of that shape so that I can put my eye right there. All right, so I'm going to do that on both sides so I can have more of a face there. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I will put in his eye. There we go. We got one eye on that side and our other eye on this side. There we go. And we made a pangolin. Isn't that cute? That is a quick and easy way to make a pangolin out of completely recycled materials. We used corks, we used toilet paper rolls, and we used a water bottle, which are all things that we would have just thrown away, but we were able to reuse them and create a little pangolin. Great job, friends.
I had so much fun making those pet pangolins out of all of those throwaway materials. I love to make treasures out of trash. And you know what? These guys, we don't have to feed them ants. I would love to see your pet pangolins, and you can share yours with me on our Facebook page at Club Firefly Kids. And remember to join the club by liking and subscribing to this channel. Until next time, keep reading, keep creating, and keep on shining.
Spread your wings, shine your light. Club Firefly. Spread your wings, shine your light. Club Firefly. Spread your wings, shine your light.